have in the last 2 weeks also engaged critical stakeholders. We keep talking to our traditional rulers, our various religious leaders, and the organized private sector. We have had several collaborative engagements with all of these various stakeholders, and all the conversations around how we stand the tide in Lagos have always been germane at those conversations. We know that we cannot achieve a continuous success without needing to carry all stakeholders along. Let me again especially appreciate our committed health workers and our frontline COVID-19 personnel, whose hard work, dedication, and sacrifice have helped us thus far. We are indeed proud of their great service to the state. I'm sure you're all aware that I dedicated our first anniversary in government to the gallantry health workers by symbolically decorating representative of each of the various health units on May 29th, which was a gesture that we felt that it was appropriate, it was needed, and it was just to show our own appreciation to all of these frontline health workers. Dear Lagosians, we have completed an extended first phase, and now we're entering a second phase of our easing of the lockdown in line with the Presidential Task Force and NCDC protocols on ease of lockdown. I'm sure we're all aware that on Monday, June the 1st, the PTF released a set of guidelines to further ease the lockdown. As has been the practice, the PTF allowed the state governments to build on the foundational guidelines issued and to adopt them to existing local contexts. In the light of this, here are some other guidelines that will be observed and implemented in Lagos State until further notice. Like has been mentioned, there's a nationwide curfew which will continue to remain in place, has been modified from the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day. And that the financial service sector, the banks are now have been allowed to open fully, and their working days will remain Mondays to Friday. We have now granted offices and private businesses, of course excluding the prohibited ones who we will mention, all of our organized private sector and manufacturing concerns will now operate and open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening. There is, however, a strategy which we want to ensure that will encourage them to also have to run shifts and other flexible working hours within their facility. And one of the things that will happen is if you are running shifts, you also must have guidelines around ensuring that they keep within the premises and have means of transportation for this staff. As regards the public service, we're asking all of our public officers on grade level 13 and 14 on the Unified Public Service to resume work from Monday, June 8th, 2020. We're still holding back on grade levels 1 to 12 to further notice. Manufacturing businesses, like I said, are being permitted to operate overnight shifts, and provided they ensure that they keep the staff and their premises during this duration, and they guarantee transportation and safety for their staff during this time. There will also now be a restricted opening of religious houses based on compliance that we've seen and we've reviewed both with the Safety Commission, and I will explain what all of that would mean very shortly. Hotels and other hospitality businesses are now allowed also to be open. Restaurants outside hotels are permitted to open for takeaway services only. There still shall not be any in-dining activity. Non-essential interstate travel will remain prohibitive. You can still not do cross-state journeys. We have, like we did mention, our portal on the register to open, which has been launched by our Safety Commission. I will be rolling out the website very shortly. But our gyms, our nightclubs, spas, cinemas will still remain closed for the next 2 weeks at the first instance. In 2 weeks' time, we will have reviewed their own protocol again and will tell you when exactly we feel they can open. All of this eased restriction and permitted opening must be accompanied by standard prevention and control measure of typical physical distancing, mandatory temperature checks, and use of face masks in public places, regular disinfection of premises, and strong personal hygiene. In line with my promise that I made 2 weeks ago, we set up a committee that is chaired by the Honorable Commissioner for Special Duties, where we've drawn guidelines for reopening, and that committee has been working with Lagos State Safety Commission and Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency. As we all know, mass gathering during COVID-19 pandemic can be of serious public health consequences, and there are documented evidence that mass gathering can increase the spread of this virus. And that's why we will, from 14 days' time, precisely from the 19th of June for our Muslim worshippers, and from the 21st of June for our Christian worshippers, we will be allowing all of our religious bodies to open at a maximum of 40% of their capacity, maximum of 40% of their capacity, and we will be working with them as being expected with the Lagos State Safety Commission. But we know that these places of worship have different sizes. But even if your 40% capacity is really so large, you cannot have beyond 500. And keeping that 40% maximum capacity, it's really, really so important, right? And no matter how big your place of worship might be, you cannot have more than 500 worshippers at once. We'll be encouraging people to have more than one service and to ensure that they keep their premises clean, disinfect before another round of worship can take place. We will also be advising that there should only be mandatory Fridays and Sunday services. All other night vigils and other regular services must be put on hold for now until we review our current situation. We will also be advising very strongly that persons below the age of 15, because of how well they walk around and how they become difficult to hold down, that they should be excused from the places of worship, and citizens that are above the age of 65, citizens that are above the age of 65 should not be allowed into these places of worship. I think these are very important points that we need to re-emphasize. Because of how we see the movement of the pandemic, we believe that age bracket are extremely very vulnerable, and we're pleading with them to please still stay away from the places of worship. Like I said, the crowd capacity should still not be more than 40% at any time. Our Safety Commission will register, but we will come at unexpected time to check the level of compliance at each of these religious houses. We'll also be advising that if you don't have face mask, there should not be an entry, you should not be allowed entry into these premises. And like I said, there should be periodic deep cleaning and disinfection of the facilities during and after various times of worship. We will advise that they should not have any food sharing, communion, where they are being shared by a common dish, should be discouraged during this period. Sharing of kettles during ablution also should be avoided, prohibited if possible. Let people know that these are very difficult times. Let's also encourage the use of stationary collection boxes and electronic payments where possible. Let's desist from carrying collection told around. Let's see if we can keep to a stationary collection point for worshippers when they come around. We also expect to see separate ingress and egress, which must be properly delineated for free flow of traffic at these various centers during and after the worship period. The decision to proceed, to restrict, to modify, to postpone, or to cancel a worship is strictly at the sole discretion of the state government, working under the umbrella of the Lagos State Safety Commission and Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency. We'll still expect for people to have online assessment for their places of worship via the platform that we've provided. I now want to talk about other social and event centers. All of the other social and event centers are currently being reviewed. However, social clubs with registered trustees with a verifiable governance structure will be permitted to start operation in 2 weeks' time, meaning that in 2 weeks we will be allowing social clubs that have verifiable trustees and we can relate and know what are their protocols. They will also be allowed to open in 2 weeks' time. All others would use the next 2 weeks to review individual protocols for the other ones, and in 2 weeks' time we'll be telling you what the guidelines will be if you do not have an existing trustee membership or you don't have existing protocols in place. For now, the prohibition of opening of social event centers will continue to remain in place. The operators of these centers should use this period to prepare their premises for reopening, and the website which has gone live, which I mentioned earlier, is www.lasgsafetyregistration.com. www.lasgsafetyreg.com. And I think everybody can go to that website now and you have all of the other protocols as I've enumerated on the ease of register to open. As I promised in my previous speech, these guidelines are required for gradual ease of our economy back into full capacity. In light of this, our agencies will be going around to inspect the various businesses and facilities for their level of preparedness to operate in full compliance with the new directives and guidelines as I've enumerated. I cannot complete this briefing without touching on an important issue that I know is also uppermost in our minds, which is what are we doing with our learning institutions? I know we are all eager to know the plans we have for reopening of our learning institutions. There's still a lot more work that needs to be done in this regard, and we're looking at the educational sector very, very differently. However, we will continue to have online learning with our higher institutional learning, which are currently going on. All of our 7 higher institutions have started their online learning, and they will continue to explore that line of learning. But however, primary and secondary schools, we will be engaging with the Ministry of Education, with the Lagos State Safety Commission, and we'll be coming out with a specific pronouncement, having extensive engagement with the various levels of stakeholders in that sector. It's because of the very many stakeholders in that sector that we have not been able to make a full pronouncement. In 2 weeks' time, we will be able to make a full pronouncement, once the protocols have been agreed with all of the various stakeholders at the primary and secondary school, as into when and how these institutions of learning, these schools, will be opening. Regarding face mask, while we have seen very many people adhering to the rule, we still see a lot of people not obeying or ensuring that they wear face masks at public events or even when they are out in the public. We want to reiterate that all of us need to take responsibility. These are very, very difficult times, and it's important that we continue to communicate with our citizens that this is for their own good and for their loved ones. Self-regulation is the order of the day, and you should not wait for government to regulate you or to regulate your conduct. Even though we'll be doing so, you must ensure, as a matter of responsibility, that you self-regulate yourselves in the interest of yourselves and your loved ones. I think it's important now to thank all of our support agencies, the security operatives, the police, the DSS, the Neighborhood Watch, and everyone that has been in partnership with the state at ensuring that we keep the state safe and secure at all times. I would also like to thank our whistleblowers, to continue to encourage them that the lines are still working. Let us be our brother's keeper. If you notice or if you see that things are going wrong in any organization, please let us scale it up and inform us so that we can make relevant amends and we can correct all of these wrongdoings. The numbers are still valid: 0901 051 3197 and up to 3199. 0901 051 3197 up to 3199. I want to thank the gentlemen of the press for your patience and for your understanding. Like I keep saying, we are both on the same side of the divide. As you help us push on this communication, we on our own part will ensure that we do everything at ensuring that this pandemic comes to an end in Lagos as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, gentlemen of the press.
Thank you very much, the Incident Commander, Lagos State on COVID-19. Gentlemen of the press, we would like to take questions.
My name is Adedoja. I work with CVC News. I want to talk about the reagents. Used in doing the molecular test. There was a time it was so scarce, and Lagos testing dropped by 40%, I remember, because every day Lagos normally tests about 500 people. Out of it, 70 to 80 are positive daily. So it got dropped at the time, and then the state said that because of the scarcity, though worldwide, and Lagos said it will come up with its own production of reagents. Now that you have 7 additional molecular testing labs, has Lagos been producing this reagent? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. Tokumbo Yutoji is the name. Arise News. There are fears in some quarters that Lagos is running out of...
I can't hear you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now, sir? There are fears in some quarters that Lagos isolation centers are running out of bed spaces.
Okay.
Could you confirm, the true situation to us here, sir?
I should do what?
Could you confirm or debunk this, report to us? Then, most importantly, sir, by July, August, Lagos is expected, by the projection given to us by Prof, your Commissioner for Health. Lagos is is expected to hit infection figures of about between 90,000 and 120,000. Then it means Lagos will need to take in about 30% of those into the isolation centers, coming to about between 11,000 and 15,000. Is the current strategy of collaborating with the private sector, and the home treatment idea, is it going to work for us then to be able to take in the figure that we're expecting by then? Then number 3, sir, I don't know, is there any review we're looking at, in this next phase of restriction in the transport sector? There was an issue that was brought to my attention just before yesterday, the BRT corridor on Ikorodu and TBS access. The directive was for them to start operating at 60% capacity. But the report I got was that they reverted to the normal, operational capacity, and even jacking up their, price, with about their fares with about 80%. Are we looking at that, area at all? And lastly, sir, post-COVID-19, what strategies Lagos adopting to ensure that food sufficiency, since it's been projected that there will be more people suffering severe food insecurity maybe by the end of 2020. Post-COVID-19. Food sufficiency. Is there any attention being given to the agro-business sector to ensure that this does not affect us that much in Lagos? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Titila Yoabero from Channel Studio. Okay, a lot of people are still concerned about the level of compliance at the open market.
Level of?
At the marketplace, the compliance level. The places are always rowdy and all of that. What are you doing in that regard, looking at the increasing number of COVID-19 cases we have in Lagos? And again, the Lagos State government also advised that, that they'll be doing Lagos home isolation. How are you monitoring those that are doing home isolation?
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. My name is Kadria Ahmed. I represent Daria Media and Zuri Media. My question is regarding budgets. I understand you've said you'll be increasing your primary. You've talked about the fact that you intend to increase the budget for primary health care. At the federal level, we have seen a slashing of that budget by almost 42%. Given the impact this is going to have on your budget, because you do get some resources from the federal government, what are the plans to deal with that deficit in order to ensure that your plans for the primary healthcare centers remain on track?
Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. Good afternoon, Mr. Governor. My name is Sheyi Fumiola today from Lagos Television. The question is about the interstate travel, and it was reported recently that the governors across the country are not so happy with the flouting of the laws that restricts people from traveling interstate. Now, Lagos being the epicenter of this, it's observed that more people move in and out of Lagos compared to other states. So what is the state doing to ensure that this is curtailed, setting that example as the centerpiece of excellence? Thank you, sir.
That'll be awful.
Thank you very much. I don't know why it's zeroing my mic. Because I was struggling to even hear some of. I think you need to do something about that. Thank you very much. Adi Doja, very typical. Always the first to ask questions. So yeah, reagents. We've gotten smarter with our procurement process regarding reagents. So this is something we've been on for the past 3-4 months now. And so part of the collaboration that we're doing even with the private sector is that a whole lot of us, we're using all of our contacts, globally to be able to source, a huge number. And it's been paying off. In fact, there are some that we've even gotten from the private sector through their own contacts and we're doing a lot more in terms of our reagents stock up, than where we are 5-6 weeks ago. So we've actually gotten around smarter, and we know what those numbers are. And so what you see is we do not have any backlog of testing. 4 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks, we had backlog of samples that were collected and we hadn't done tests. Now, I mean, we actually do the testing, as it's been collected. So we do not have any backlog again. And so these are some of the capabilities that even these private labs would need to bring to bear. So all of us are using, joint resources, to be able to do those huge bulk purchases, so that no person will run out of. So the answer is no. We haven't produced any local ones yet. I mean, we've never even had time, but we can access, from the international markets. So there's a question around the isolation center as well, and that is getting filled up. Yes, it's true. It's actually getting filled up, right? And but like I did mention, 70 to 80% of our patients, of our positive cases, are mild to moderate, meaning that a large percentage of them are not even aware. They don't even feel sick at all, and just that little portion that gets the full symptoms of it are also still in isolation center. So the strategy is that we need to have some sort of like a community-based care, so that we can keep, the isolation center more for the severe to the critical cases that truly really would need, hospital bed to be able to meet, the demand. But we're not just stopping there. We're still building additional centers as well, even as we speak. There's one that will be coming on stream, about 168 beds, next week. And so there's been a lot of collaboration also with the private sector. They've seen some private sector that also want to give us, some of their own spaces, just so that we can convert in a very short while. We're talking about 4 or 5 of them right now, and it's been we've gone a long way. We need to be smart about how we deploy resources. You see, that's the thing. We do not want to continue to deploy resources on centers that will appear as if they're just temporary. We do not want to continue to deploy resources into things that 6 months down the line they won't be needed again in the form and manner they are. So we're being a lot more strategic in how we identify these places and how we deploy the resources. So yes, we're tracking it, but we're fully aware of what the strategy will be going forward. So you're right. I mean, we're seeing increased numbers, right? From the graph we keep plotting every week, even if we don't get that number, we're seeing increased number. And the fact that we're going to also even increase the laboratories that we have, we will still see increased numbers, because if you test, the more you aggressively test, is a percentage thing. You will see, because it's a community, right? So all of our strategy is working and ensuring that we can track and monitor them. And the monitoring is very simple, is to give medication and to be able to give follow-up calls and ensure that they do not have any respiratory challenge. It's only people that have respiratory challenge that usually do fall very sick. And we're trying to even build what we call an oxygen plant right now. We're trying to actually build an oxygen plant where we will not have any shortage of oxygen for people that need respiratory support going forward. You asked questions around the BRT and buses. Okay, so it's a function of demand and supply. So on the supply side, I'm happy to inform you that next week the state government will be will start deploying about 570 buses onto our various routes, where we've started clearing them out of the ports. Our last set of buses that came in, we started clearing them out of the port. So the challenge that we had on the BRT corridor, which was a case of the supply not meeting the demand, right? So you see a lot of lot of people queuing back to be able to enter this bus. We're going to be meeting that supply chain, that supply side of it from another week or two. So we're pushing more buses onto the BRT corridors to ensure that, we can still keep as fairly possible the social distancing, which will mean that there will not be standing in any form of those buses. We still want people to be seated, air conditions turned up, so that people can, and wear your face mask. If you continue to make those sacrifices, ensure that you are not coming into the buses if you are not your face mask. These are some of the instructions we've given to them. You will reduce incidents of transmission, and it will make the journey a lot safer for yourself and for other passengers that are there. Post-COVID, what is our plan on food sufficiency for Lagos? Well, the truth about it is we don't have all of the land to be able to say to ourselves that we will have the capacity to feed over 20 million people, even post-COVID. We are a consumption state, so we will continue to collaborate with the productive state and ensure that food continue to remain an essential service. Food continue to remain an important logistics movement. Nobody has restricted food movement. So we might not be able to feed ourselves because of our land size and because of how the geography of where we are. But as state government, we are doing a bit of interventions that we can do. We're hoping that we can complete our rice mill by December. And for information, that will be the biggest rice mill in the country. It's a 32 per hour metric ton rice mill in Ikorodu. And that is a major intervention in ensuring that our food sufficiency plan is met. We're in extensive collaboration with our aquaculture farmers. We're doing a lot of aqua farming, all around ourselves, and we're encouraging them. We've scaled up capacity. We're doing agropreneurs. We're identifying them. We're giving them support financially and making them small farmers, even in other locations, knowing fully well that they have the market in Lagos. Even in the State House here, we've started doing small farming just so that we can reduce our costs and we also can have food sufficiency all around ourselves. So it's a full chain. The ones that we can control, the rice, we've started, like I said, we will be having the line being commissioned by December or thereabout this year. So that will ensure that our post-COVID-19 strategy is on track. Channel ask around compliance at the market. The truth about it is it's a responsibility that all of us have to play. It's really not about government alone, but it's about all of us, and that's why we keep ensuring that every 2 weeks we communicate with our people, explaining to everyone why this is so important. We still have our community markets that we're still running, and at the schools that we've had for like 2 months that they're still running. And so we continue to have conversations with the market leaders, the yalogers and the babologists. But you see, it's a population thing, So we said to them before, on food markets are on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, and on Saturdays. The non-food market are Mondays, are Wednesdays, and Friday. That is still in place. We're hoping that people will just understand and see the need for people to be able to take full responsibility for this, and even for the sellers to insist and ensure that basic things are kept, both in the market and also the consumer as well. We've seen a lot of, hand washing exercise. We've seen a lot of, sanitizer being deployed at the market, and we needed to commend them. It's really just around the crowd that has to keep surging in, and this is a population, challenge that as a state we need to contain with. So we'll need to communicate. We need to continue to engage our citizens, and that's why all of us are here. Please let's ensure that this becomes, a means of communication, that we're advising our people and we're telling them, the corrective narrative. So, like I mentioned, around home isolation, yes, the protocols are almost completed, right? So it's all around tracking and monitoring them, tracking and monitoring them and having them have their medication. We believe because the percentage shows that a lot of people are mild to moderate. That is what it gives us joy, that it's only a 3 to 5% that are becoming very critical for us. So that large population, The reason behind isolation at home is just for you to reduce transmission. You probably will not fall, you probably will not be unwell, you probably will be well, but if you keep to the isolation that we're giving you, you will not transmit or you will not infect others. You know, and that's where the communication has to be right. You know, because the risk is if you now infect somebody that is vulnerable, then you have spiked our numbers for us. You not being vulnerable, you not having any infection, you still need to stay at home. And please, that's why we need to continue to do the testing. Once you realize that you are positive and you don't have any symptoms, don't say that it is hooray. Please, you still need to isolate and stay at home so that you can keep others that might be vulnerable, you can keep them away, and you don't need to infect them. And so, you know, gentlemen of the press, we all have a role to play in this. Let's continue to. We will do our part to ensure that we'll continue to trace and track them. You know, but the communication has to be both ways. My sister asked around the budget of the federal government. You know, they've reduced the budget for primary health interventions. You know, unfortunately, I cannot hold brief, you know, for federal government. And I do not have the full mix of what led to that, you know, and why they had to do the numbers that they've turned out. But for us, we've looked at us, and I can only superintend over what I have, you know. And so we feel that it's a time for us to do a lot more, and the health sector is a time for us to push, you know, resource into that sector, and that's what we've implemented in our budget. You know, even in a reduced budget allocation, we try to push the envelope for health sector much more. Will we meet all of our resource? Maybe not. So that's why we need a lot more collaboration. If it's not federal, if it is other international agencies that will see transparently that we on our own have pushed the conversation we've led, you know, to ensure that we're putting more money into that sector. A lot of them are talking to us, and we're believing that we should be able to see sufficient resource that must be able to carry us to the line that you've just explained. Well, interstate movement, how do we curtail it? You know, interesting thing is really just for other states to do their bit, and Lagos will hold forth. The only neighbor that is a state that we have is Ogun State. My other neighbor is the Atlantic Ocean, which is in front of you here. And the other neighbor that I have is Benin Republic. We've been able to manage, you know, people coming from the border post. We've reported to you, you know, week on week, how we've managed Nigerians coming from that side, how we've been able to isolate them, how we've been able to treat them, even when they come in. But however, with Ogun State, we're collaborating. You know, and collaboration, if we've moved even the boundary line, we've pushed it back so that we can do monitoring, we can do joint patrol, and we can do all of those things. But the challenge is they are all coming from other parts, from the eastern part, from the western part, from the northern part. So it's really a conversation that all of our other states must do a lot more. If you do a lot more, you don't even get to Lagos. You know, because if they stop you in Ekiti, and they stop you in Ondo, and they stop you in Osho, and they stop you in Oyo, you don't even have a need to get to Ogun or get to Lagos. So that is the conversations that we need to have, and that is the narrative that needs to go out there. We don't have 4 or 5 states, so I don't have, you know, a lot of, you know, border posts that I need to push back. It's only one state, and thank God we're working together. The Commissioner of Police there and here are jointly, you know, doing patrols. They are jointly doing enforcement, you know, but we can only hope that our citizens understand why we're asking people to stay back or to stay behind where they are, just so that we can slow down, you know, the transmission of the virus, and we can see an end to this quicker and faster than we'd expect. Thank you. I don't know if there are other...
No further questions. Yet again, Lagos State Governor has explicitly and clearly tell us the way to roll in Lagos. So, without having to keep you any longer in this scorching sun, Mr. Governor, members of the State Cabinet, thank you very much for having you here. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.